Welcome to What's Up Wichita. We're here with host Mayor Brandon Whipple. Today we're talking about how the city has adapted to housing and community services needs during the pandemic. If you have a question for the mayor, email them to social@wichita.gov and he'll answer them on next month's show.
Hey everyone, this is Mayor Brandon Whipple. Welcome to this episode of What's Up Wichita. We have one of my favorite people here, Director Sally Stang, who runs our housing and community service program here at the City of Wichita. He's going to come in and talk to us about some of the programs that we have going on for throughout the city for those who might qualify. Sally, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being on. First off, the work that you and your department has been doing has been amazing. You guys have really taken the ball and ran with it when it came to securing programs that help not just our most vulnerable throughout our city, but really everyone who's might be going through a hard time through the COVID pandemic. And I think that you guys are actually breaking records right now as far as the amount of support that we're able to get from the federal government to go into our programs.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, a couple of those we wanted to talk about a little bit today. One of the things that we heard from the public was integrating our community policing model with social services to ensure that we are trying to take away the variables that cause that might lead to crime or even poverty. So I wanted you to come in and chat with us about the community-based crime reduction program, which my understanding is we got a new grant for.
We did. We were very excited. Earlier in 2020, we started meeting with the HOT team out of Wichita Police Department, discussing additional funding opportunities to try and integrate more caseworkers along with the work that the HOT team already does. And we identified the community-based crime reduction program. It is a specific Department of Justice grant that really aims to using community-based solutions to solving crime. And we thought we were being very creative at the time to say we are aware of increased crime levels in the Broadway corridor. Mm-hmm. And there's often discussion about how that might be a causation or correlation to the number of homeless individuals in that area.
Real quick, can you tell our viewers what the HOT team is?
I'm sorry, yes, it's a homeless outreach team. It's a group of WPD officers who are very well trained at interacting with people experiencing homelessness. They're very much integrated to our whole homeless response team in the community and try and engage people who are struggling with homelessness and connect them with the resources that they need, with the best result being moving them into housing. So we collaborate with the HOT team often, obviously, because the housing department not only provides housing, but we also provide funding for homeless service programs. And so, through collaboration with the HOT team, we identified this particular grant. We worked with the crime analyst to try and target where we were seeing the highest level of crime and the highest level of crime that had some sort of homeless person indicator, whether that was a perpetrator or a victim. We really thought this was a long shot, this idea of going to the Department of Justice to integrate caseworkers.
Yeah, you mentioned this, where, so for those watching, this isn't coming out of our general fund. This is money coming from a particular grant that we applied for, yes. And if we didn't get it, another city would have got it.
Yes.
But you mentioned about how we got it the first time around. Like, what happened there?
Yes, and so it was our first time applying. We thought this was really, a slim chance that we would be awarded this particular grant. So the fact that we got it on the first try was pretty remarkable. My experience applying for federal grants, most through the Department of Housing, is these really highly competitive grants. You usually learn from your first application. You get feedback from the grantor of where you may have fallen short or where they wanted to see more partnerships or collaborations, and you get awarded the second or third time around. To get it on the first time, really, I was absolutely floored that we managed to land it on the first attempt.
That's awesome.
And the grant really is about working with the community, engaging the residents, the businesses, the providers, and in our case, the homeless individuals that are in our target area. So we'll be doing a lot of community outreach activities. We'll be doing surveys. We're working with Newman University, who's going to be analyzing the data, so the crime statistics before, during, and after implementation of different activities that we're going to be putting forth with the funding provided by the Department of Justice. So it was $1 million that we can spend over the next 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're very excited about this opportunity.
Well, that's excellent. We're going to shift gears a little bit. One of my favorite projects is the 316 Hotel. So I hope you could talk a little bit about what this project is and what we're doing with it now versus what we'll be doing with it for the years to come.
Sure. So, we were awarded 12 times our normal allocation of Emergency Solutions Grant with CARES funding. And so Emergency Solutions Grant is required to fund programs that help those experiencing homelessness. And that's outreach, it's prevention, rapid rehousing. And, so we were really challenged in ourselves to say, yes, we see this dire need this winter to expand homeless shelter. Because of COVID and social distancing requirements, we knew we would need more space. But I'm not a proponent for building more homeless shelters. I'm really not. They're the most expensive, least effective way of trying to get people into housing going through homeless shelters.
Let's expand on that. I think homeless shelters is what people normally see as the aid to folks who are experiencing homelessness. But usually a homeless shelter, you go in and it's a place to rest, but then you're back out during the day, right? And this will be different than that?
It will, definitely. Most homeless shelters operate that way. People are in 7 o'clock at night, they often get a meal, a cot to sleep on, and then they're out by 7 o'clock in the morning. And they have to take all their belongings with them, and they really don't have many places to go. They can go to the homeless day shelter, they can wander neighborhoods, hang out in libraries, but they're not then engaging with caseworkers and resources. They're just trying to survive the day, just so they can get back at night and get inside again. So when we were envisioning this opportunity and said we needed additional shelter space this winter due to distancing, we were adamant that that wouldn't be the typical shelter, that it needed to be shelter where people could stay all day and engage with caseworkers and try and connect people with resources, and so they're not just going out and then roaming the community.
So the hotel will actually have on-site social services to help folks who are experiencing homelessness.
Correct. And they opened for Overflow Women's Shelter starting on the 11th. Those staying there can stay there, like I said, 24 hours a day if they like. They don't have to stay.
Right.
They can go out and do what they want, but they're not forced out. And then the caseworkers can engage with them to try and get them connected to the services that they need. And then the idea behind this is while they're operating shelter on the first floor, they'll be able to do the renovations necessary on the third and second floors to convert all of those units from motel rooms to small studio apartments. So that means adding some additional kitchen facilities, small kitchenettes, expanding some of the lighting and things. Hotel rooms are notoriously kind of dark. So making sure that each of those units is a space that an individual can call their own, make their own home.
So with that, and I brag about you on my social media, by the way, because I'm really like the way that you integrate the services and the resources from the city with opportunities at the federal level, but also keeping, I guess, that partnership with our nonprofit community. One of the things we saw with COVID and the economic effects of that is a lot of nonprofits who do incredible work actually saw an increase in demand and then a decrease in support from folks cutting budgets, but also from individual donations. So can you tell us a little bit about the networked approach towards the 360 Hotel? We're working with a nonprofit community, I believe. If you kind of give us some details on that.
Sure. So when I was made aware that the 316 Hotel was up for sale, that's when my mind started working and going, okay, we could position for shelter, get this long-term asset. That on its own will be operationally effective because it won't need additional subsidies. The rents they'll be able to charge for those rooms will support its operations going forward. So that's one of the best parts. And that's only because there's no debt service on the property. But when we first had this idea, I actually met with the entire continuum of care providers. So those are the network of homeless service providers in our community. Many of them provide day shelter, night shelter. Some provide transitional housing, permanent supportive housing. And I said, I got this idea. And I'm looking for a partner in the community to collaborate with this thought of purchasing this hotel on behalf of a nonprofit and be able to reposition it for the long term. And Humankind Ministries stepped up to the plate and said, we're interested. And for us, it made a lot of sense with Humankind because they're one of the providers that not only provides shelter, but they also have permanent supportive housing. So they've already done both sides of that coin, and they have the staff and the expertise to be able to do that. And then where the 316 Hotel is positioned is really kitty corner from Humankind's main campus.
Oh, wow.
So they were able to get, they're able to provide economies of scale, be able to leverage maintenance and management support from their main campus over to the 316 Hotel. So that was fabulous. It was not an easy acquisition, to be honest with you. The property itself is actually owned by Ascension Via Christi, and they had a long-term ground lease with the hotel provider. So that added a whole nother component to the idea of trying to secure this asset. We really needed Ascension Via Christi to understand how important this project was, that this was really a game changer for the community in the Broadway corridor, and that it was a positive thing to be able to add those additional services. And they did. They stepped up to the plate and agreed to amend the ground lease. We'll transfer it over to Humankind, operate this particular function on the property at $1 a year for 40 years. So they're a huge player in this that would not have been possible without their support.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, lots of folks who I think share the credit with that, but it's really your department and I think really the effort that you put into this that got this off the ground. Amazing project that hopefully we will see in action next year, particularly after it's renovated.
Correct.
So switching gears, last thing we wanted to chat about, during the budget discussion, feels like 1,000 years ago, but earlier this summer, we wanted to reimagine our animal shelters. And my understanding is that you and your department have come up with a way to actually integrate our animal shelters with the Way to Work program.
Yes.
So could you chat with us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was actually sitting in one of those council budget discussions when I heard
God forbid. That
so
sounds terrible.
so many people came to Century 2 to talk about don't cut the budget to the animal shelter. It was such an important issue for them. That got me actually sitting there going, well, how can we help? How can we possibly help? Because it is such an important mission, that animal shelter. And it had occurred to me at that time that we operate the Way to Work program, and that we've been doing that for years. Every summer, we provide job training to youth, 14 to 17, trying to get them ready to enter the employment world. And they get in-class training, and then they get on-the-job training. We place kids in positions with nonprofits and other government offices, and they get to work there. And then the program that's funded with CSBG and CDBG actually pays their wage for up to 8 weeks in the summer. But with COVID-19, we got a late start to even be able to gather at all. So the program was cut from 8 weeks to 6 weeks, or to 5 weeks, excuse me. And so we still had some capacity left in their budget for wage subsidies. And I thought, if the animal shelter might be willing to try it, maybe we could place some of these youth that have been through this training program to be able to work weekends at the animal shelter. So they can still go to school during the week and then pick up hours on the weekends. And it has been a great collaboration. They were very excited at the animal shelter. We placed 6 youth in positions there, but it was such an opportunity. 28 youth actually expressed interest in doing this on the weekends and applied. And they had to go through the same application process that any city employee does. So they had to submit the application through the portal, and then they had to come in and be interviewed. And the interview panel was great because we had someone from the animal shelter, someone from TWTW, and they got to actually have all of the kids interview and then be able to provide them feedback on their interviews. Obviously, they picked the 6 to fill those positions, but all of the other ones got feedback.
That's a good experience.
Yes, it was tremendous experience. And from what we're hearing, it's going really well. The kids love the work, and the shelter gets that additional capacity where they had, animal those who were out enforcing the animal laws were actually having to do cage cleanups and things like that now these kids can do on the weekend and get those officers back out on the streets.
And I guess the kids are getting trained to work around animals.
Absolutely.
So I hear Pomeranians are pretty aggressive. And just kidding. One of our communications people has a Pomeranian, so that was a joke to poke some fun at her. But they get training, and we haven't had any incidents. And it looks like we're getting a service at the city level, but also the young people who are getting that experience interviewing, applying for a job, that's going to pay them dividends down the road.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, we really appreciate everything that you're doing, and frankly, this is an unprecedented time in our city. We have a lot of people who economically have been challenged during this pandemic through no fault of their own, and you and your team and the City Council has responded by increasing our programs to the point where they can be helpful when the demand increases. For those who are watching this right now and wondering, do I qualify for a rent assistance program or for utility assistance, or is there anything out there that could help me and my family get through this? How is the best way for someone in that situation to figure out what they might qualify for?
Generally, it's our website, wichita.gov/housing. You can start from that point and go to many different programs, whether you're a low-income homeowner and need assistance on repairs on your home, whether you're looking for rent assistance or utility assistance, if you're looking for job training and funding to advance your education. There's all kinds of different programs out there right now. Our website's the best place to start, because generally you can see whether you'd income qualify, what's involved with the program, and it will connect you to the right people within the department to ask for the questions. The new emergency rental assistance program that we talked about at your briefing last week has been a hot topic, to be honest with you, with media and people reaching out by phone and by email. The struggle with that one is we don't know yet. That will definitely be launching from our website. We don't have the application up. This has only been going a couple of weeks. But to keep checking our website, we're hoping by the 1st of February to have the application up and things rolling on that particular program.
So, and a lot of people reach out to me,
Sure.
ask a question. So thanks for letting us know where to go. It's wichita.gov/housing. With such a crazy year that I think full of unexpected turns, you and your department have really, I think, excelled. And I just want to know, out of all the different programs, the different ways, grants that you applied for and got, or what's your favorite? Which program do you think is probably making the best or biggest impact, or the one that you just really speaks to you more?
The 316 hotel for sure. Just because much of what we're doing now is an immediate fix. And it's going to address an immediate need, which is so needed. But then the 316 hotel changes the game a little bit, because we're going to be able to address that immediate need. But then we're also looking forward and going, how many people are we going to be able to house in that permanent supportive housing? How many people is that going to change their lives for the next 15, 20 years? We're not just talking getting through COVID. We're taking it even further. So that one, and the fact that we got through it so quickly. In my own mind, I was laughing at home that it was the project that was going to kill me. Talking with my family, I'm like, one thing after another. But my husband said to me, he said, you really got that done pretty quickly. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we did. It was a lot to try and tackle. We needed to get Humankind's board on, board of directors on board. We needed, Via Christie to be willing to work with us. We needed to,
$4 million in funds to secure.
We needed $4 million in funds, and to know, the funding source changed constantly because the rules were changing constantly as they were coming out from HUD. And so every time I talk to someone, I'm like, well, it's changing a little. But in the end, we probably got it done in 3.5 months, which getting anything like the purchase of a $4 million, actually it's a $2.6 million building with a $1.4 million rehab, in just a few months is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited.
I don't think I can get an email reply from legal within 3 months. So to be honest, that's 4 months to get this whole thing off the ground. Really kudos to you and to the staff there and to everything you're doing for the city of Wichita as a whole. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. So with that, thanks for being on the show.
Want more ways to stay up to date with city news, announcements, and fun behind-the-scenes footage? Follow us on social media. You can find the City of Wichita on Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, Twitter, YouTube, and more. Find city classes, learn about what's going on at city council meetings, and provide feedback on city projects.
All right, Mayor. So we have several questions from the community this week. As usual, if we didn't get to you, we will get to you next time. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All
What do we
right.
got?
So the first one is about earthquakes. Deidre DeGrotto wrote in and said, we're wondering what's being done to research the ongoing earthquakes. Is there anything to be done to understand the uptick in them? Is it likely a big one is coming? What are the safety measures people should take?
So really at the city level, one of the things that we do is after an earthquake, we'll send folks out to assess if there's any damage at our facilities. When it comes to actually researching and discovering what could be a possible cause, the uptick in earthquakes, it's really more up to the geological scientists and the organizations that study that. So as a city, we stand ready to be as helpful as we can, but we don't have a geologist on staff who researchers that. We kind of follow the guidelines of the scientists, and also there's a place to report the earthquakes as well. There are official places online that if you feel an earthquake, to make sure that you report it so that the scientists can try to come up with, I guess, better hypotheses or theories on what's causing it and ways that maybe we can prevent them.
Definitely, and we know that if there is an earthquake that's potentially dangerous, get under heavy furniture, a doorway, stay away from windows or items that might fall.
Right, and I think that our quakes have to be, I think, a 4.0 or above for it to actually be considered potentially dangerous. Luckily in Wichita, the majority of our earthquakes have been short, they're small, and as far as we know, haven't caused the same type of damage as I think the states that we come to our mind mostly when we think about earthquakes, like California and some of these other areas.
All right. Our next question comes from D.S. Schwind, and D.S. says, when is the mask mandate going away? We are 6 feet apart. We have our masks here. Most people follow it anyway, he says. Why continue a mandate with a vaccine in place?
Well, it's a really good question. Sadly, the vaccine's not in place yet. For the vaccine to be really considered in place, I think it needs to be more widely acceptable. One of the situations with the mask is to help control the spread of COVID, particularly to the most vulnerable populations. And that's not just to folks who are in nursing homes, but also to our population who's 65 and older. And that's in phase 2 of the vaccinations process, and we haven't got to phase 2 yet. So what we don't want to do is really kind of let our guard down too soon, which people will feel, well, the vaccines are coming out, so it must be safe to go without a mask, and then we see another uptick in our numbers, and we sadly would see more death and possibly all the stuff that we normally do as a city, our big fun events, we don't want to shut those down again. So we got to stay progressing forward, following the science by lowering the spread as we continue to get more vaccines from the state and from the federal government. And I will say that the mask mandate is actually over on the county side now. We had our own in place for a while until the counties came up to the same level as ours, and now we're just partners in enforcing the mandate, which is different than having our own. So, but I know no one can really separate the county versus the city. I mean, I'm pretty much always answering for what the county's doing, and I'm sure the county's answering for what the city's doing. It's just a very thin divide, I guess.
Yeah, unless you work for us, most people
Right.
probably don't know what the division is.
If you're a normal person
Yeah.
who has normal stuff you do, then you probably, don't know
Yes.
the two different forms of local government.
Yeah.
I get yelled at for what the school board does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, but I get it.
Definitely. All right, our third question is from Debbie Nassif, who has questions about tree limbs. Her neighbor's tree limb is coming into her yard, questions about how to report those things. What can residents do if they see a tree limb in their yard or maybe a tree limb down in the city? Is there a resource for them to go to?
Trying to think if that's my neighbor or not, because I'm pretty sure my tree is doing one of these. But if it is my neighbor, she should just knock on my door and talk to me. Usually you want to go and have that contact with the neighbor to try to see if something can get fixed sooner. At that level. But if not, I wrote down the number here. We have the Sedgwick County Code Enforcement Office. Again, it's Sedgwick County, so it's technically not under the umbrella of City of Wichita. And their number is 316-660-1840, and that's the place you call to report any type of neighborhood nuisance.
Yeah, perfect. And we also have Access Wichita, which is a city entity. You can go in there, you can report everything from potholes to city lights that are out, or even West Star lights that are out. And we work with those different agencies to make sure that it's tracked in our system and responded to. So residents can also use that multiple ways to report issues that are out. And we always appreciate residents being our eyes and ears on all the streets.
Right, and that's the other important thing, is to let us know. If there's something out of place or something that needs to be fixed, please don't assume that us at the city level that we just somehow know about it. We want to be made aware so that we can get to some of these problems, like a pothole, before it becomes a more expensive fix. So we do encourage folks to take that active role as being citizens of Wichita and reaching out to us, although it must be tough for whoever checks the Access Wichita email. I'm sure that person gets bombarded all day long. But yeah, we do need to stay on top of this stuff.
All right, well, thank you. That's all we have time for today. Again, if we didn't get to you, we'll answer more questions next month.
Thanks for watching this episode of What's Up Wichita. I try to be as responsive as I can on social media, so be sure to reach out to me there or email me at bwhipple@wichita.gov. If you want to ask a question on next month's show, please email your question to social@wichita.gov. You can even send us a short video of you asking your question, and we'll make sure to play that on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.